All right, guys, welcome back to the Let's Talk Ball pod. This is episode 7, and we're going to talk about game week 2 of the Premier League season. On this episode, we're going to just run through some of the results. We're going to start with United and Arsenal, and then we're going to move on and afterwards touch on some notable transfer rumors, and then finish the episode with an FPL game week 2 review. We're going to talk about our FPL teams, how we did, maybe some possible transfers coming in this week. But let's jump right into it. We're going to start this episode by talking about United versus Brighton. That game ended 2-1 in favor of Brighton. João Pedro scored a header in the 90th +5, I believe. And I want to talk about this game, kind of my thoughts as a United fan, because I know a lot of people have kind of been talking about and saying, like, you know, is this United of old? Has United actually improved this summer? What is Ten Hag's future like? So I just kind of wanted to touch on a few of those topics. I guess as a neutral fan, I kind of want to talk with you. Did you get a chance to see this game? Any of the highlights? Do you have any thoughts there?
I did not watch this one live. I watched some of the end of it and the highlights. But yeah, tough loss for United, given how things ended. That late goal, João Pedro getting left open at the back post, and then the offside goal that got disallowed for United. So a big swing in the second half, given those two goals right there.
Yep. Definitely. The heartbreaking part of this game was United, I think, started the game very strong, actually. I watched every minute of the game, and for the first, I'd say 30 to 35 minutes, United were the better team. And I personally think it was not like we were blowing them out of the water, but United seemed to be the team that was in control. Out of possession, we looked really good. Our press was working really well, and I feel like everything was working to plan. But then towards the end of the half, Brighton kind of started to figure out that if they could focus their build-up along their right-hand side and our left-hand side, kind of targeting Marcus Rashford, who doesn't quite have the pressing down, and he gets accused of not working hard. I think he worked hard this game, but I think his reading of the press just wasn't as strong. And so that is where things started to fall apart, was towards the end of the second half. And in the second half, we had flashes, but couldn't quite put it together. Brighton started to control the game as we tired. And I think a big issue was that Mason Mount came off the field at halftime for Joshua Zirkzee. And that leads into my first talking point. I want to talk about something that I like to call the Mason Mount issue. I'm dropping a video on Instagram and TikTok kind of highlighting this and a couple other things that I noticed from this game later this evening. But we've got an issue with Mason Mount where he makes our press look so good. I think he might be one of the best out-of-possession players in the league. Just the way he understands how to not only read the press, when to press, but also when he engages in the press, he's actually able to win the ball back and create a favorable outcome. But here's the other side, is that Mason Mount, when he comes off the field, he came off the field because we needed a true striker. He was kind of playing, him and Bruno were kind of playing a false nine role for United, and we didn't have a true striker on the field, and it looked like we were lacking a little bit of cutting edge in the final third, a bit of a focal point, someone that was kind of, just a true box presence as a striker. And so it was Mason Mount that came off the pitch in favor of Joshua Zirkzee, and Joshua Zirkzee is a good presser, but I think he's new to the team, doesn't know the system as well, and there's a drop-off. There's an obvious drop-off as soon as Mason Mount comes off the field. I also heard rumors that it might be injury-related, so that's another thing. But all that to say, Manchester United looks substantially worse without the ball when Mason Mount is not on the field, and it doesn't seem like Mason Mount can play in this team when Bruno Fernandes is on the field, Kobbie Mainoo, and then whoever our defensive midfielder is, whether that's Casemiro or Ugarte, who we've just signed today. So I think that's going to be a big dilemma for Ten Hag to solve. And I think that's something that is going to be crucial to look out for. I don't know if that's something that you saw when you were watching the end of this match, but it did look like we were just a little bit disorganized out of possession.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be interesting, where Mount is going to fit in, like you were just saying, because if he's a center mid, more of an attacking mid, like you say, he presses well, I don't think you would want him to replace Mainoo, because Mainoo's better in build-up. You can't take out Casemiro because Mainoo isn't solid defensively enough on his own to sit in the 6, because Mount probably goes too far forward. So it is quite the dilemma on where he fits in and it looks like he's gonna just phase out to the bench once Xerxes gets healthy, once Hoyland comes back and is fully fit. So I don't really have too much insight on United in terms of Mason Mount, but I just find it really interesting on where he's going to fit in, and I foresee him just dropping the bench once either Xerxes gets more comfortable with the team or Hoyland comes back into full fitness.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think we're going to have to compromise with Xerxes and Hoyland leading the line next to Bruno Fernandes. I think they're both good enough pressers, especially Hoyland. He's got an engine on him. So I think that is going to be the obvious answer as soon as the international break is over, that Hoyland comes back into the team. Mason Mount likely gets dropped to the bench, and then he's going to be used kind of like a Ji-Sung Park, or like someone that like is a big match player. Like when we play the Cities or the Arsenals of the world, like we might throw him on the field in a false nine capacity, or maybe even at like right wing or left wing, and just let him kind of be a utility player that just is someone that comes in and provides a whole lot more physicality and just defensive solidity into our team. And I think I see that being his role, at least for right now. And then I also would love to see him. I talk about this in my video as well, but I don't really want Kabi Manu having to play every single minute of every single game right now at 19 years old. For one, to protect his health, just to protect him in general. Like I would like him to be sharper for some of our bigger matches. So I wouldn't mind seeing Mason Mount come in. I think he's less optimal of a solution than Kabi Manu, but I wouldn't mind seeing him kind of come in and take some of that, not the attack, maybe some, basically share minutes between Bruno and Kabi Manu as a rotation option.
Yeah, I think both those are really good shouts, especially the one about seeing him in kind of like a Park Ji-sung role, is like playing for the bigger games. Because I do think you guys are more solid defensively when it is Mount and Bruno, because you guys just aren't so far forward. You don't have someone hanging out as far forward, and and then it's just one less player that's more attacking. Whereas Bruno, he is a lot more attacking. He's a lot more risky with the ball as well. So you're adding one more player in there towards Bruno. It's not going to be as risky because he's going to be higher up the field when he has the ball, maybe passing from deep a lot less in those games. So I think it's a great shout.
Yeah.
And also a good point about just wanting to rotate Manu out more. This makes a lot of sense. Maybe Ten Hag sees that and sees this as a good opportunity to just figure out where Mason Mount plays, get him more minutes, and get him embedded into the team, so that there just can be more rotation throughout the season with him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's probably what a lot of this is Ten Hag trying to figure out, just trying to get Mason Mount more familiar, get him some game time, because Mason Mount did miss a lot of time last year with injuries. So I think any sort of game rhythm is going to be really important for him right now. And then the next thing I want to touch on this game was, as I alluded to, we kind of lacked a bit of bite in our attack. And I know Hoyland isn't healthy, Xerxes new to the team, and I think a lot of us as United fans are relying on Marcus Rashford to play a big role this season. And in preseason, he looked really sharp, and I was actually thinking he was going to come out in the season strong. But so far, he actually looks a little low on confidence, and he's getting a lot of criticism, at least in the United Twitter circles that I follow. And so I think one thing that's going to be really interesting to see this season is how he's able to, if he's able to bounce back, play himself out of this slump. And if not, it's looking like, is this basically what do you do with Marcus Rashford? When he's in form, he's by far, maybe not by far, Bruno Fernandes is probably our best player, but Marcus Rashford is an elite, borderline world-class player when he is in form. It's just not often that he's in form. So do you bench him for Garnacho, who's, I think, performing more consistently, but I don't think he has as high a ceiling as Marcus Rashford? And then are you, as United, if you're United's management team, are you thinking, are we looking at moving on from Marcus Rashford, phasing him out of the team eventually, finding a replacement eventually in the market, or is it too early to panic? Do you give him time? Me, as a United fan, Marcus Rashford is my original star boy. I will ride for him to the end, but it is getting to a point where that is a serious consideration, and I'm not really sure what to do with that. I think right now I'm of the opinion of give him more time. He did look really sharp in preseason. He came out in the Community Shield and missed a pretty big sitter against City, which might have hurt his confidence coming into these next few games. And he also isn't being helped out by the fact that he doesn't have Luke Shaw or someone that's really overlapping and help kind of get him out of these 2v1 scenarios that he finds himself in often. But all that to say, Marcus Rashford is looking like a worry. I'm not sure how he's looking to neutral fans, but as someone that watches him week in and week out, I think it's a bit overblown. I think a lot of people really do like to just overreact. Like, I think he still made some good plays in the game. He just didn't quite have the end product there.
Mm-hmm. How many years does he have left on his contract? You know,
I don't know. He just signed a new contract about a year ago. Like like he had that one season where he had
really
like
good,
really really good season, and then he signed a contract right after that. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure where he's at right now.
2 to 3 years at least. It sounds like
exactly. It's not like he's like coming up near the end of his contract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, I don't think he's looked great. Last season, I thought he was really poor. He just didn't look like mentally there, like ready to fight for the team. Didn't look like his confidence was up. I think this is a really crucial season for him, and I think there should be a lot of pressure Ten Hag to bring Marcus Rashford around. Maybe not pressure on Ten Hag, but Ten Hag should feel it'd be a good test for him to see if he can breathe confidence into Rashford and get him playing up to his level again. Because if he can bring him back, that's a huge plus for you guys. That's like an additional 15 goals in the season for you guys if you can get Rashford in form. He's going from like a single-digit goal scorer to 18, 17 score. Like he can go from like 5 to 18 goals if he's in really good form. So I think it's a big test for Ten Hag, or it could be a really good badge on Ten Hag's shoulder if he could bring Rashford around. It would make a huge impact on his season. But I think all in all, I think it's a huge season for Rashford. If he doesn't perform this year, I think would be time to let him go, honestly, because he's on pretty high wages, I'm assuming. And last year he wasn't great, so if he's not good this year, I think it's time to cut the losses there.
Exactly. I think the defense for Rashford has always been he's never had 2 bad seasons in a row. Like, whenever he's got a poor season, he usually follows it up with a very strong season. So this is time for him to follow it up with a strong season. He hasn't come out the gates like that, but I think that's also kind of how he was in the season where he blew up. He started that season slowly, and it actually wasn't until after the World Cup, which happened in December, that he really started to take off. He scored in like 8 or 9 straight matches, like something crazy like that. So there's still time for him to work it out. And I also would like to think that Luke Shaw, as I said earlier, him coming back into the fold, which he will after the international break, will be really helpful for him as well. He'll have his longtime partner back. And then the last thing from this game, so we can move on, I just wanted to touch on the second goal because I know that looked really bad to a lot of people watching. And it is bad. Like, I think first goal, forgivable. Like, Maguire probably could have cleared it, but I don't know, sometimes that happens. And the second goal, no one was marking João Pedro on the back post. All of our players were on one side of the pitch. And watching it back, I actually shout out to this guy, Jake Fox. He does some really good breakdowns of set pieces. He actually is an Arsenal. I don't know if he's an Arsenal fan, but I found him because of his work talking about Arsenal set pieces. And he broke it down. And we don't need to get into the nitty gritty, but long story short, it looks like this is kind of a result of having a back line with 3 out of 4 people being in positions that they're not really familiar with. 2 of them being De Ligt and Mazraoui, who just joined the team a little bit over a week ago. And so as much as this can't happen, I don't see it being something that will happen repeatedly throughout the season. It just seems like something to where everyone kind of moved into the spaces that they were supposed to, but Mazraoui started trying to drift back to his natural position, likely because that's just what he's used to doing, maybe at other teams. But Mazraoui was the one that was likely supposed to be in the spot where João Pedro was, and it was just a bit of a lack of communication and I think unfamiliarity with where people are supposed to be playing. Like, Diogo Dalot is a right back who's used to playing right back, but he was playing left back in the game, and it's just little details like that. So all that to say, I don't think it's something that United fans should panic about, and it sucks that it lost us the game, but like I said, not something that I think will be a major theme throughout this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing on that, just on the game, unless anything else you wanted to talk about that goal, but Danny Welbeck coming back, haunting United, which as I love to see. I love Danny Welbeck, as I mentioned in the last pod. Love to see him help take some points off of one of Arsenal's rivals. I
Yeah.
didn't notice. Did he celebrate after he scored?
He did a little bit. It
He
wasn't
did.
like a super emphatic celebration. I think like a fist pump or something like
Yeah,
that,
so
but it
something
wasn't like a
small.
full on like hands
Yeah,
up, like won't
yeah.
celebrate.
That's kind of what I expected. Classy dude, and I don't think he owes
Hmm.
United anything really.
Hmm.
But I also wouldn't expect him to like do an Adebayor against Arsenal and run the length of the pitch into the slide.
Yeah. That is still one of the most iconic Premier
Yeah,
League moments I think I've seen.
so good.
But yeah, shout out to Danny Welbeck as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like he
We
always
talked about
seems
it.
to
We
haunt
talked about it
us.
on last pod, so I wanted to bring him up again, scoring back to back and against his old club, former club.
Yeah, he's cooking, and I think he always seems to play well against us. Like I'm pretty sure he scored against us last season as well. So he just loves scoring against United. But real quick, we got a big matchup against Liverpool coming up this Sunday. That game is definitely looking scary with how solid Liverpool is looking. But at the same time, it's going to be at Old Trafford, and Liverpool has seemed to have a lot of trouble against us within the last year. Ten Hag actually has a surprisingly good record against Liverpool. So I think we're going to remain competitive. We're going to have some new signings in the mix. Ugarte hopefully will get some minutes in. I think we probably see De Ligt maybe start and get more minutes ahead of Maguire because Maguire didn't have his best game against Brighton. But it's hard for me to predict as a United fan just because we have so much new coming into the mix. I know our lineup will remain mostly the same, but we don't know if Mason Mount's going to be fully healthy. Scott McTominay is now gone. Not that he would have started, but that's definitely an option off the bench for us. Ugarte, I don't know if he'll be ready to start immediately. I assume not, but I see him playing some minutes as well. And then I think the major difference we could see is that Xerxes ends up starting off the rip instead of Mason Mount. But if I had to guess, I could see that game going 2-1 in favor of Liverpool, or maybe some type of like 2-2 draw. But I think it'll be a really fun game to watch.
Nice. I'm gonna give it a 3-1 to Liverpool, just 'cause I think Liverpool looks so good.
Yeah.
Now. They have had easy fixtures so far, but I've been pretty impressed with Liverpool, I must say.
All right, let's move on to Arsenal versus Villa. I will let you take this one.
Cool. Yeah, this was a really big win for the Arsenal this weekend. I thought we got the monkey off our back early in the season, which was great for us after losing twice to Villa last year. Emery has certainly had Arteta's number recently, so I thought that was just really good for us. It's a tough game to go. I think it was away to Villa, so it was really tough to play there, especially given what happened last year. But I was happy to see us win. It was a nice 2-0 win with goals from Trossard and Partey. Timber started. This was his first start since the season opener of last year, where he got injured and was out for all last year after injuring his knee. I thought he looked pretty good. He was more solid defensively against Bailey. I thought he did a good job of defending Bailey, but wasn't as fluid moving into middle in the inverted role as Zinchenko does. Ultimately, based off like the little glimpses I've seen of Calafiori, I think he will nail down that left back's position in time. But having Timber there, I still thought he was good, just not exceptional. But also he's still also learning the position after being injured a lot. I thought Villa were really physical throughout the game, especially in the first half. Saka almost scored in the first half off of a far post shot that Martinez saved well. And that was a classic Saka there. And then so 0-0 at halftime. Early in the second half, we got lucky not to have conceded. Gabriel got caught in the ball, and Rogers, I think, won the ball and played it to Watkins, who missed a sitter.
I forgot about
Did
that.
you,
Yeah,
you see that one?
yeah, that was
We
bad.
got so lucky there. He just straight up missed the goal.
That was bad.
And then Raya made a crazy save. Onana had a shot deflected off Gabriel, bounced off the crossbar, and Raya was on the ground, and Watkins was running onto a bouncing ball, point blank, open net, and headed it, and Raya somehow like pounced off the ground to save it. Granted, Watkins could have done a little better, but I'm giving all the credit to Raya there.
Yeah, that was an insane save.
Insane save. Trossard subs on, and then not long after coming into the game, he just scores a classic Trossard goal, right spot, right time, in the box, calmly finishes it. That's what I love Trossard for. I love having him in the team just to come in, score goals, and really important goals for us.
Yeah. I say he's super instinctual. I feel like he is always just popping up in the right places and then has the ball striking to go with it, like hits the ball super cleanly and just has a great finish in him. I think he's just like a goal scorer, to be honest.
Yep. Yeah, he really is. And this is really important to have in your team, so I love having that. And it was interesting, his celebration. He just didn't celebrate hardly at all until like Saliba came up behind him. And I had to tell him like 5 times to do his goggles celebration, which was hilarious. Watching Saliba like pat him on the shoulder, like do the goggles, do the goggles. But I think Trossard was upset that he's not been starting. There was an interview after the game where he just didn't really say it wasn't. He didn't say he was upset. He just said like every player wants to start. You're there in the team to do that. But I think the sentiment is that he wants to start, which is very fair. Did you see his celebration? Got to talk about this.
I did see the celebration. At first, I thought it was like him just kind of like trying to be cold, like no big deal, like I just scored. But then since then, I've seen a lot of discourse about Trossard, and like I have seen in the past, even prior to this, that he's kind of been upset about like taking such a backseat role. And I think he also like maybe even at Brighton, kind of like there's a little bit of him not being outwardly outspoken about not being happy in his role there, but I do think there might have been a hint of him like displeasure with the role that he's currently playing. And I know some people have been a little bit skeptical about Martinelli and his output and his performances recently. So I could see why Trossard would think that he deserves to start, especially when I feel like he pretty consistently is coming in and being effective as well.
Yeah, I think it's just a justified feeling from Trossard. I mean, part of the reason why we got him was because he was upset about his lack of playing time, and De Zerbi wasn't. It didn't seem like he was happy with Trossard's attitude, and I think that's kind of why we were able to get him. So it's nothing new from him. I just hope he doesn't like make too big of a stink, because I do really love having him come off the bench, honestly. And even though Martinelli has not been producing, I kind of like Martinelli starting and having Trossard off the bench. One thing that was interesting that I noticed, and like heard some people talk about, was just the lack of offense and any productivity in attack from us on the left side. At one point in the second half, we did go over there for 20. Didn't even try to pass to Martinelli for 20 minutes, which was quite interesting. But then once Trossard came on, he scored the goal, and then leading to the second goal, there was a ball over the top that into Trossard. He got in behind, got to the end line, and played it back. No, he played it across to Saka. Saka got it, composed himself, and then rolled the ball calmly back to Partey, who took a one-time shot, and scored. And Martinez looked poor and should have saved it, which was kind of nice to see it, from an Arsenal fan, and the shithouser that he is. So once Trossard came on, 1, he scored, and then 2, we started kind of attacking the left side a little bit. I don't know if it's a part of Arteta's plan to just go down the right side where we're more comfortable, and then that'll open up the left side a little bit more. Just something interesting there that Martinelli was hardly getting the ball at all. Don't know if his tactics or what, but just interesting.
Yeah, I've definitely seen a lot of discourse about that on Twitter. I think outside of United Twitter, I follow the most Arsenal-related accounts, and a lot of people seem to be displeased with the production on the left-hand side of Arsenal. That just seems to be a theme that's been there for a long time. I've seen certain theories thrown around, like maybe shift Odegaard to be more left-sided, but he seems to prefer that kind of right half space right next to Saka. But people are saying that might balance a little bit better to get a little bit more creativity out of Odegaard on that left-hand side to unlock Martinelli, and then give Saka a little bit more free range on that right side to roam in and drift inside a bit more. And then also you guys just signed Mikel Merino, who I think is going to come in and kind of be like a left-sided center mid. I think you guys haven't had a strong left-sided center mid since Xhaka left. I think he was kind of like the missing piece there. And so I think it'll be really interesting to see how Arteta tries to kind of reinvigorate that left-hand side for you guys. It seems like Marino's going to play a big role, and I don't know if this was on purpose, but in his kind of welcome to Arsenal team meeting in the training room, in the dressing room. He was seated right next to Martinelli, so could be
Oh, really?
a little bit of foreshadowing there.
That is something that Arteta would think about the details of to like really have them sit next to each other so they get to know each other well. That's an Arteta level of detail. I
Exactly.
think a lot of it is just the right side, or our best players are on the right side, and that side is just so much more established. We got our best outside back in Ben White, our best creator, midfielder in Odegaard, and our straight up best player in Saka, all on the right.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. So I think with bringing in Marino, figuring out our left back spot, especially with Calafiori, if he turns out to be the player that we expect him to be, I think we will start producing more on the left.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to the game, Odegaard should have made it 3 with a nice cutback. That really killed me when I was watching that for my fantasy team. But we were up 2-0. So in the grand scheme of the things, it wasn't too bad. But it would have been nice for Odegaard to score. And then Saliba had an incredible recovery run and block on Ramsey. Ramsey probably like a 10-yard head start on him. And Saliba just made up ground and had a really well-timed, impressive slide tackle to block his shot. And you see him get up and celebrate with the fans. I just love Saliba. Love his mentality. Love how good he is. He's amazing.
Yeah. I thought he looked really solid, and I remember seeing that tackle and being super impressed. I was surprised Arsenal was able to hold on in this game without getting conceded on. Honestly, there was a couple, like you said, a couple big chances from Ollie Watkins, and then I thought maybe that Ramsey chance might result in something. Morgan Rogers seemed to have Arsenal kind of run ragged. Like, I was super impressed with Villa's physicality, to be honest, as you mentioned at the beginning. Having a midfield of Amadou Onana, Tielemans is no slouch. Like, he's not the most physical player, but he's not like someone that you target necessarily. And then Morgan Rogers is kind of like a second striker, kind of attacking mid hybrid type of player. And that guy was just like, he was carrying from like front to back, like by himself. He was like, honestly, I was so impressed with him watching. Like, that's like, I've seen him play before, but that was the most I've seen of him. And I think that guy is going to be a real top player.
Yeah, I noticed in the first game, and in this game too, he picks up the ball deep and then just drives. And is so strong, and he'll just throw arms out, just like push people to the ground. Honestly, he was pushing Partey down, pushing Martinelli down. He's like, he is strong. He's very impressive. It looks like to be a great player.
Yeah, if he can tie a little bit of output to that physicality and carrying, I think he's going to be a serious threat for Villa this season.
Exactly. Yep. It'll be interesting to see whether he can like get that finish down, or just that final ball for some easy assist. And then just a final few things to touch on. Raya got the well-deserved man of the match. I thought Saka was really good. He could have gotten it, or Saliba was also great. So all three would have been deserving winners of man of the match. But given that we kept the clean sheet, mostly due to Raya's crazy save, I think he deserved it. To your point, I do think we got lucky keeping a clean sheet. I don't know how we did that, but sometimes you just do that.
Yeah, I'll take it for fantasy.
Last thing, my favorite, same. Favorite part of the game was when Ben White, or when McGinn and Saliba were having a little go at it. McGinn kicked the ball at Saliba, falls right to Ben White, and a split second just launches it right into McGinn. It was so good.
Yeah, that was fun.
I really don't like him again. I think he's a pretty dirty player. Just kind of goes under the radar with how dirty he is. And then Ben White is just the best shithouser. So I was cracking up and love seeing that.
Yeah, that was fun to watch, even as a neutral. It was kind of like bang bang, like all happened so quickly.
Yeah, I just love Ben White so much. He's such a fun player. He's so funny and so kind of dry in the way he does things, and sneaky in the way he does things. But I think he would be a super fun person to hang out with. He looks kind of quiet and like he gets away with stuff, but I thought I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And then when Calafiori came on, it took him about 2 minutes to get into it with Martinez a little bit. He was mostly pulled away before he could.
Yeah.
But it looks like we might have another shithouser at the left back, so watch out for that going forward.
Nice. All right, you got anything else on the game?
That's it.
Nice. Okay. Now that wraps up us covering our two teams, and we're going to kind of go through some of these other games a bit more quickly. We've got Tottenham versus Everton is the next game we want to talk about. That game ended Tottenham 4, Everton 0. I gotta say, Everton is looking pretty concerning to start the season. Spurs played really well, but Everton did not do themselves any favor.
Yeah, no, it's not looking good for Everton. Odegaard started for Tottenham, which was surprising. He was a signing for Burnley. He's pretty young. I thought he looked pretty good. We'll see if there's more to come from him. Son was clinical with his finishing, scoring 2 goals off 2 shots, I believe. And I thought Madison's been looking really good so far this season, kind of back to his early season form of last year.
Yeah, I hope Madison came. I hope Madison has a good season. He's always been a player that I really like, just as a neutral fan, and I know him not getting selected for the Euro squad probably hurt a lot, but it was probably motivation. So I hope he uses this season to really kind of show his quality and show everyone that he deserves to at least be in the conversation when it comes to squad selection next time it comes around.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Got anything else from that game?
Nope. We can move on to Crystal Palace versus West Ham. That game ended 2-0 in favor of West Ham. Did you watch the game?
I watched a little bit of that game. I had a few. I think this is one of the games that was on and around the same time, but as a few other ones. So I had that game on in the corner, and I was really watching that game in hopes to see how Eze looked because I've got him on my fantasy team, and it looked like another game of Crystal Palace lost 2-0. I think they're really struggling to find a rhythm, but they don't look terrible. Like they're still creating chances. Eze still is looking like a threat, but it's just not quite clicking. There's something missing, which that something is probably Michael Elise. But I think with time, they'll work some stuff out. I don't think they'll remain poor all season. They just picked up Eddie Nketiah, who I think will be a huge help for them. They just brought him in. I think we saw the Fabrizio Romano, here we go, this morning. So it'll be nice to get another attacker in there. I think Eddie Nketiah can be like a 15-goal a season, like in the league, a season striker when he's the main man. So I think it'll be nice to see him get some minutes in under Glasner. But in general, I didn't have too many thoughts from this game. Like it was fun to watch from a neutral perspective. West Ham scored some good goals. It was nice to see Aaron Wan-Bissaka come in for West Ham and create an impact pretty right away. For West Ham's, I think it was his second goal. Wan-Bissaka carried from back to front and assisted the Bowen goal, so that was good to see as a United fan.
Yeah, I was expecting Palace to start the season better, but obviously going to be tough without Elise. I think Glasner is a little unhappy with the squad management, just like all the players were selling and not bringing enough players, but mostly just the players were selling, especially, which is, I think, a very justified feeling based off how well he did with his squad last year. You'd hope that they would have enough faith in him to let him keep most of the players or to just strengthen as opposed to what it seems like they're weakening at the moment. Based off of that, I think that might be why he picked Edouard to start, to kind of like as like a shot at the management, because I think Edouard's terrible. He was offside for one goal that got called back, and especially when they brought in Kamada and Sarr, who I think are both good attackers, who should be starting over Edouard. So that's just kind of something to follow with Glasner. And then they've got a lot of movement going on this week. It looks like, with the transfer window ending on Friday. We're recording on Tuesday afternoon. So it looks like Gahey also might leave, which would be really bad for Palace, in my opinion, losing your 2 starting center backs. Anderson having already left. So I'd be very concerned for Palace's defense if they lose Gahey as well. That'd be so tough to lose 2 of your starting center backs. Yeah,
I agree. I think that's going to be a lot of change in a short amount of time for Glasner, even if he does get players in to replace them. Those players are going to need time to get embedded and learn the system and whatnot. So he's definitely working with some tough circumstances. But I believe no, am I making that up? I think their director of football is Dougie Freedman, who is one of the most highly regarded ones. Let me look that up real quick so I make sure I'm not just talking out of my ass here. But Dougie Freedman is, he is the current sporting director at Crystal Palace, and he's one of the most highly regarded sporting directors in the sport. He's right up there with the Dan Ashworths of this world. Paul Mitchell's, just some guys that are known for knowing how to like basically when it comes to recruitment, squad building, and overall like long term 3 to 5 year vision plan when it comes to building a team. So I do believe that they do have a plan in place, but it might just be a tough moment for them right now.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I hope they take care of Eddie Nketiah. He's been a good servant for the club, having come through the Arsenal Academy. He served the club well, scored some big goals for us when we needed him. I ultimately just don't think he's quite up to it based off of our squad and the talent that we're demanding at the moment. But I'm happy to see him go to another club, especially a club like Crystal Palace that I enjoy. I think it'll be interesting to see whether they go to like a two-striker formation with Mateta or who gets the majority of the minutes there. It's interesting to see what happens there and all the different movements happening at Crystal Palace before the transfer window closes. I think they will turn it around and have a fine season.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of unknowns right now.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. You have anything else on that game? All right.
Good.
Let's move on to Southampton versus Nottingham Forest. This one ended Nottingham Forest 1, Southampton 0. Gibbs White scored in the 70th minute. I actually didn't even see this game or his goal, but I do love Morgan Gibbs White. I think he's a top player, so that doesn't surprise me at all. Did you have any thoughts from this game?
This is a game I was not very interested in watching, so no real notes. I saw the goal. It came off of a corner. Came off a corner. I think it was cleared out. Nottingham Forest put the ball back in. Gibbs White headed it, and the keeper saved it. It fell to him, and then he scored into like a basically open net. But this is a game from Southampton, a promoted team that's not looking too hot, and Nottingham Forest, who I also don't think are that great of a team overall. I think they're going to be in the relegation battle.
Yeah.
So just frankly, this was a game I wasn't too interested in watching.
Yeah, me neither. This wasn't really calling me. But now that I'm looking at the stats, I've got something very interesting. I know Southampton, I think, is a team that likes to kind of play possession, build out from the back. And so they actually dominated possession in this game, 65% to 35%. But it looks like they did a whole lot of nothing with it. They must have been holding it in the back or something, because they had 0.14 expected goals, only 5 total shots, 0 big chances, versus Nottingham Forest had a 35% possession, but 2.45 expected goals, 23 shots, 6 big chances created, which is crazy.
23 shots is a lot.
Yeah, so it looks like this was pretty one-way traffic for the most part.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive to get that many shots off with only 35% possession. It must have been them like taking the ball. I mean, Southampton did look really bad in the first game trying to play out of the back, so it might have just been a lot of Forest winning the ball high and then turning that quickly into a shot.
Yeah, exactly. Which sounds like Forest. Only other thing I wanted to mention from this game, just as a United fan, Anthony Elanga, I love the guy to death, but he's kind of annoying me from a United standpoint. We had an academy product, Maxi Oyedele, get sold, and he kind of posted his goodbye post, and Anthony Elanga was in the comments. He posted a GIF of the Matrix like dodging a bullet in reference to United, and it's like not the first time he's had kind of like an underhanded comment about United, which I understand. United kind of gave up on him, and they probably didn't give him as much playing time as they wanted, and he was a little bit of a scapegoat for some time, so I could understand being a little bit bitter, but it just seems like every time he gets a chance to publicly speak out against United, he's taking it, which I think I understand betting on yourself and wanting to like back yourself, but at the same time, I don't know if that's the best etiquette. Like, who knows? Like, are you going to be like that whenever a team sells you? You know, like I just maybe send that to him personally, not on Instagram.
Yeah, it's such a public thing, and I'm not the only person to post something kind of controversial this week. We'll get to that when we talked about Chelsea very briefly.
I forgot about that. I'm excited to touch on that soon. But that's it from that game. Let's move on to Fulham versus Leicester. This is another game I had on but didn't really watch too closely. Fulham won that match 2-1. Did you get a chance to see any of this? Do you have any thoughts from the game?
This is another game that was... What time was this one on at? Yeah, this was the Saturday 10 p.m. slot. So yeah, I had the Goal Rush on, so I was kind of following all the games at once. A lot mostly for FPL, can't have them all on. But I was really happy that Emil Smith Rowe scored, especially having him in my fantasy team. And then Iwobi, another Arsenal product, scored. So I was just happy to see two former Arsenal players that I really like score for Fulham. I mentioned earlier in the preseason that Fulham was going to be kind of like my second team to follow this year. So I was happy to see them win and happy to see Emil Smith Rowe score and get a big 10-pointer for my FPL team.
Nice. There you go.
And Anthony Robinson also got an assist, who also I have, and I'm high on him again this season. I'm high on Fulham as a whole, mostly because they've got easy fixtures to start the season, and their assets were cheap in fantasy. I'm waiting for Muniz to come through. He's going to have a big week this week. I'm calling it.
Nice.
They're playing another promoted team, I believe, coming up.
Nice.
So this is Muniz's week, but not too many takeaways other than like the goals I saw in fantasy purposes.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm happy about all those fantasy takeaways as well. I love Iwobi as a fellow Nigerian, and then I got ESR and Anthony Robinson in my FPL team, so good match for me as well. All right. Looks like next we've got City versus Ipswich. This was fun at the beginning, at least for me as a United fan. Ipswich goes up early in this match, but City goes on to win the match 4-1. Believe we saw, was it a Holland hat trick in that match? Yeah. So, I don't know. Like I said, good to see Ipswich score early, kind of put up a fight at first, but City kind of grew into the game. It was at the Etihad, so I figured it was going to be a murder. I think a lot of people saw that coming. They were trying to get some City assets into their team for this game in FPL, and that's how it kind of played out. I think one shout out from the game that might have flown under the radar, maybe not, was that I thought Sabino, whatever you want to call him, I think he looked impressive again. I know it's just Ipswich, but I think he's going to be a player to watch this season. I think he's got the 1v1 abilities of a Doku, maybe not as great as Doku, but still has the ability to beat his man 1v1 against like a settled block. But then also in transition, I think he looks a lot more potent and dangerous than Doku as well. I think he's pretty strong on the ball and just looks like a really good player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great shout. The game went as I expected. It was, like I said, it was really cool to see Ipswich score early, see them get excited, but then City came right back with their quality really quickly.
Yeah.
And that second goal was pretty insane from both just De Bruyne and Haaland, just really showing their class and their talent. With De Bruyne picking it up and off like the sideline on his own half, playing one ball over the top to Haaland running in, heads it past the goalkeeper off the bounce, and then off one bounce just kicks into the net. I can only imagine what the Ipswich players were thinking coming up from the championship and just having that happen to them.
Yeah.
Like, what are they supposed to do about that? It was just an insane De Bruyne Haaland link up, and I just really would have liked to be in the minds of the Ipswich players when that happened.
I agree. I was just thinking about that because Ipswich has really been thrown into the ringer. I think they might be a little underrated because they came in and immediately had to play Liverpool and City, which is
so unfortunate.
No slouch of like two very, very good teams. Like no slouches there. So you're not really like getting you're not being cut any slack to start the season. But hopefully they'll be able to use that so that when they turn around and start playing anyone else, they're like, well, we've already basically faced the worst of it outside of like an Arsenal.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Hopefully everyone listening had Haaland in their fantasy team and captained them, because that was really big going into this season, whether you were going to take on Haaland or not. And a big reason for taking Haaland was for this game week exactly. A lot of people were worried that he would score a hat trick, and what does he do? He goes on and scores a hat trick. Thankfully, I had him in my team and captained him, so I was all right. Didn't really consider using the triple captain on him, even though there was a lot of discourse on that. But I'm not too upset because I really didn't spend too much time on it. I'm fine with holding it later and making a more informed decision later in the season.
Yep, I'm in the same exact boat. Captained him, made sure I had him in my team, and I'm very glad I did, but did not use the triple captain, but really have no regrets there. Nice.
All right, we can move on to Bournemouth versus Newcastle. In this game, Bournemouth and Newcastle tied 1-1. Newcastle started with a really bad lineup, I thought, and because of that, Bournemouth not just because of that, because Bournemouth are good. Bournemouth looked really good just in the majority of the game until the substitutions happened. Did you have a chance to watch this game?
I watched bits and pieces of this game. I didn't get to sit down and watch it from start to finish, but the parts that I did watch, it did look like Bournemouth was kind of not dominating, but I think they were a very good team, like put up a very good fight against Newcastle. And I think kind of what you said, I think it was in our last episode talking about how a lot of people are high on Bournemouth. Like, I do see why. Looks like they just are a very good team. They look like they haven't really missed a beat, having lost Solanke, who was probably their best player last season. So I'm really excited to see what they can do this season. And I was kind of disappointed. I think Bournemouth, in my opinion, deserved to win this game. I think they created the better chances. Actually, Newcastle had 4 big chances in this match, so let me not say that like they got outplayed. But I think at the end, it stinks to see. It was the right call, but have that Bournemouth winner called off because of the handball, I think is a little bit, that's tough for Bournemouth. And then as well at the end, I really didn't like Joe Ellington. He clotheslined, what's his name, the Bournemouth keeper, Neto, or whatever his name is. Absolutely clotheslined him. Like, in my opinion, should have been a red card. So I didn't really like that. After I saw that, I was hoping Bournemouth was going to come down and be able to score, but alas, they did not.
Yeah, I think you covered most of it. I was just going back to there's the lineup from Eddie Howe for Newcastle was really shocking to me. And every he made like 4 or 5 substitutions, and the 4 that he brought on, two he made in the 58th, and 2 he made around the 70th, which is like super clear to me, and I don't understand why he even started those players. It was Lloyd Kelly at left back and Livramento at right back, and then Longstaff, and then Murphy. Lewis Hall came on for Lloyd Kelly, which I think is Lewis Hall's a better player. He should have started from the jump. Livramento came off for Trippier, which I know there's a little like controversy. We don't know whether Trippier's going to stay, so I get maybe Trippier not starting for that reason. And then Willock came on for Longstaff, and Jacob Murphy went off for
Harvey Barnes, probably, or was
Harvey
it?
Barnes. It was Barnes, thank you.
Yeah.
So like once he made the substitutions, Newcastle looked really good. And that's how they started creating those chances. So I just don't know why Eddie Howe started with the lineup the way he did. There's something interesting there.
Yeah. The only Newcastle fan I know, shout out Adam, shout out Tuna. He seems to be very displeased with Eddie Howe and kind of has been low-key displeased with Eddie Howe for about a year now. So he's going to be a manager that's going to be one to watch. If Newcastle struggles to start the season, I think he could be a decent shout for first manager to get sacked. Just like betting odds wise, I don't think he should, but I think the value might be there if that's being offered by a sports book.
Yeah, because Newcastle have not looked great to start the season. I picked them to finish 4th, so I'm just surprised at how they started.
Yeah,
and I think Eddie Howe's part of the reason why.
Yeah, so we'll see. That'll be an interesting situation to monitor. But I think that should cover everything. Did you want to talk about Semenyo at all? I know you got a note about that.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to shout out Semenyo. I thought he looked really, really good for Bournemouth. He had 7 shots and created 1.1 expected assist, which is that alone is really high. And he had 7 shots off. He just looks really good. Looks like he's stepping up into being the main man at Bournemouth. So he's a super fun player to watch as well. I'm liking him. So for both just regular watching, he's worth shouting out, and he's worth looking into in FPL as well.
Yeah, I agree. Especially if Bournemouth's rolling and they're cooking this season, I think he's going to be a big reason why. It was fun to watch him even towards the end of last season. I can't remember. They played a really, really fun match against somebody that was like a 3-2, 3-3 thriller type deal. And Semenyo, I think, almost had a hat trick, if not had a hat trick in that game. He looked like a top player, and that's kind of the game where I noticed him in. So I'm glad to see that he's carrying that form into this season as well.
Nice.
Okay. Let's see. Next we've got Chelsea Wolves. This is going to be our last game of the weekend to round up on. That game finished Chelsea 6. Oh wait, I guess we didn't talk about Liverpool Brentford either.
You're right.
Liverpool Brentford, we can touch on that in a second, but we've got Chelsea Wolves. That game ended 6, Chelsea Wolves 2. That was kind of a crazy game to watch because it went into halftime, I believe, 2-2. and then I
Mm-hmm.
turned the game off, and then all of a sudden it was 6-2, and I was like, what happened? And it looks like a Noni Madueke hat trick happened. So that was
Yeah.
very interesting to see. Did you watch this game in full?
No, I did not watch this game, but I woke up to it and was shocked at to see six. Thought Logan's meme that he sent in the group chat was hilarious. Looking
Yeah,
at the 6-2 and then seeing, looking down and only seeing 1 point for Nkunku. That was
yeah,
hilarious because everyone's picking him in fantasy, expecting him to do well. He didn't even get to the start, and to get only 1 point from 6 goals from Chelsea was surprising. Having like from someone that just woke up and
yeah.
checking the score, didn't look at the lineups.
Yeah, it was insulting to see
Um,
that he even came in for the last 7 minutes because I had an eight
yeah,
point João Pedro on my bench ready to sub
no,
in, and freaking Nkunku comes on and just does nothing. And I was like, wow, of course.
you hate to see that. But yeah, it was a crazy game, especially in the first half. Like two late goals to make it 1-1. Like Wolves came at that late goal in stoppage time at the end of the first half off the set piece. Yeah, just a really crazy game. I guess like it was just Chelsea taking over the second half. Cole Palmer I thought looked really good from the middle. He started on the right last game the first week. This week he started in the middle, and that's where he needs to be playing, in my opinion. He can get on the ball. He makes really good runs. He drags defenders, or he makes runs to get on the ball, and just makes really quick decisions. And the weight of every pass he makes is really impressive.
Yeah,
His goal was also really sick in the first half. Like he's just so good.
yeah, yeah. He is just a quality player. Like I think, like you said, I think he looks really good in the middle, and probably I see him playing there in the future. I just think it's going to be really interesting seeing how Chelsea balances all the assets that they've got because like Nkunku, Palmer, João Felix, even I feel like are all three players that want to play in the same spaces. So it'll be interesting to see how Maresca sets them up. I'm sure Maresca will figure it out. He seems like he's a coach that's like kind of similar to Pep, to where he's pretty rigid about the spaces and whatnot that people occupy within his formation. So I'm sure. I'm sure that they'll figure it out, but I do think I see Cole Palmer starting at the 10, and Madueke, I feel like it's going to be hard to bench him after scoring a hat trick, so he probably locks up that right wing spot. And then that leaves left wing to probably Pedro Neto, who also had a solid game as well. That means Nkunku will probably be coming off the bench for the foreseeable future. So that is something to keep in mind for FPL.
Yep. Agreed. And it was interesting to me how all three of Madueke's goals are basically the same exact thing. Just Palmer getting the ball, like driving at the defense right at the top of the box, and then just waiting until the defender slightly commits to him, and then just rolls it into Madueke on his right foot. Madueke takes a touch and goes near post.
Yep.
I think Saw should have saved a couple of those, at least one of them. Ryan Nori was also at fault for the first one. I guess it deflected off of him, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the three goals were almost like carbon copies of each other, which was pretty interesting.
Yeah. I'm going to channel my inner Chelsea hater right now and give my take on the game, which I think it's great to see Chelsea score 6 goals. I think it's great to see Chelsea score 6 goals. Everyone can hoorah, Chelsea's back. But I do want to point out Chelsea did lose this game on XG. They scored 6 goals, but generated 1.68 expected goals, which means that their chances were some difficult ones that you're not necessarily supposed to score for them. But you can't take XG on one game. It's a stat that's meant for you to extrapolate out maybe the length of a season or at least half a season. So that's not the end all be all. But watching the game back, Cole Palmer's first goal, great finish from him, but should never have been put in that position to score that off of a Wolves corner. Wolves just fell asleep. Robert Sanchez, the ball went out of play, so I don't know how Wolves didn't get back in time, but Robert Sanchez had enough time to retrieve the ball from the ball boy and kick it all the way down the field and Wolves were outnumbered in the back, which shouldn't happen. So that's I think it was a lot of, I guess, dysfunction from Wolves rather than, I think Chelsea generated some great chances, but all that to say, I don't think their offense is, I don't think they produced 6 goals worth of offense with their performance. And I think that'll be something to watch out for if Chelsea come out next game and look like they struggle and everyone's going to be like, oh, what happened? Like, how are they this inconsistent? But I just think if you look at the underlying, if you look at the goals that were scored, like you said, Madueke benefited from a deflection from Ait Nori, and then another goal where Saw probably should have done better. It could be something. I think the truth of the performance is probably somewhere in between. I don't think they're a bad team. I think they are getting better, and I think they do look a lot better. But I don't think they were so good that they deserved the 6 goals that they scored.
Yeah, I think the season is going to be an inconsistent one from Chelsea. They've got a lot of talent, but they're still figuring it out. They're going to have games like this where they overperform a little bit, especially I guess on like the goal scoring side of things because they do have some really good talent. But there's games where they're going to struggle to create these chances and to finish these chances. So I wouldn't be surprised if Chelsea go on to lose the next game just because of the inconsistency that I see in this team.
Yeah.
But speaking of Madueke and his hat trick, and on the social media shout out a little bit earlier, did you see what he posted accidentally on his story before the game?
I did. I think he said something like, "What, this town is shit" or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is
Posted on his Instagram story and on accident.
yeah, that is hilarious. I'm sure that was supposed to
So
go on the
funny.
close friends, and accidentally ended up on the main.
Yep, that was great.
And did you see
an
how?
interviewer?
Yeah, I was gonna say that same thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, just he got interviewed after the game. They're asking him about it, and I think he was just like cheesing throughout the whole interview because he scored a. He was obviously a little embarrassed about it, but there was nothing too bad, and he just scored a hat trick. So of course he was happy, but was like cheesing through, getting asked about, talking shit about.
Yeah. It was funny. I'm sure his spirits were super high after the hat trick, so it's hard to wipe the smile off his face. But he was giving his apology and being like, "I'm sure it's a great town. I'm sorry for saying that," but looked like he was kind of laughing under his breath the whole time. And he was like, no regrets, you know.
No, some good content right there.
Yeah, that is hilarious to like call a town shit and then come out and put a hattie on their team as well. Let's see. Let's wrap it up real quick with the game week 2 roundup. Our last game to talk about is Liverpool versus Brentford. That game finished 2-0 in favor of Liverpool. I did get to watch a lot of this game. I made sure I had this game on, and it was a really good goal from Liverpool. Or not goal, but really good game from Liverpool. They looked pretty in control the whole match. Underlying stats look good for them as well. I think Brentford put up a good fight at times. Brentford had a good plan, but Liverpool just had a better one and better players. I think Luis Diaz, his first goal was just kind of vintage Liverpool. I think, if I remember correctly, they got the ball back and just kind of counterattacked so quickly. Because at that point, the game was kind of 50-50 in my opinion. Like both teams were kind of like trying to feeling each other out. And then all of a sudden, just classic Liverpool, like just a lightning fast transition, and Brentford just couldn't keep up. And from that point on, it seemed like Liverpool was kind of cruising.
Yeah, I thought Liverpool looked good. What I was most impressed with from Liverpool was the way they recovered in defense.
Yeah.
Brentford are a good counterattacking team, and Mbeumo especially is good at getting behind. And Liverpool terrible in transition last year defensively. But I was very impressed at how many numbers they get back behind the ball, how quickly they get organized, and how quickly they stop the counterattacks. This is something completely different from the way Liverpool looked defensive last year, and it's pretty impressive.
I was thinking the same thing. That was like one of my biggest takeaways was, like you said, that transition defense from Liverpool. Like not how quickly they transition offensively, because we know they can do that, but getting back defensively. Like I watched Szoboszlai make a couple like full field sprints to get back and like good contests and good duels, and I thought that was something that is a great sign for Liverpool and something that worries me as a United fan playing them next week, because we're about to go play Liverpool, and I think one of the ways that we usually can get them is hitting them in transition with Rashford, Garnacho, some of these guys that are so good at transition football. But if they have kind of figured that out as well, it's going to be tough to beat them next week.
Yeah, like there were times when Brentford would get the ball and I would expect them to have like a 2-on-3 or something, and then like 2 seconds later there was like 6-on-2 in favor of Liverpool, which is really crazy how many numbers they get back there.
Yeah, so that was a really good shout out from that game. Liverpool's looking really solid. I love what I'm seeing from Arne Slot in terms of tactics and how it translates to the field, and also just I do enjoy listening to him speak after matches as well. I kind of made it a point to listen to his interviews because I watched him speak about the last game, and I thought he spoke very well. So I watched him speak about this game again, and he just seems like he is really comfortable with himself, and he speaks very well, which I think can go a long way. I think he's just a very charismatic guy.
Yep. And I think we we did already give our predictions for the Liverpool United game coming up this weekend at the beginning of the episode. I'm excited for that game just because two big clubs, and with some changes at both clubs. Liverpool in terms of manager, United in terms of ownership, and just kind of running the club back office type stuff. So I'm excited for this game this weekend. Should be a fun one. I'm hoping at least.
I'm excited for that game. Unfortunately, I've got a fantasy draft during that time, but I will be locked in more to the game than my draft. Hopefully, I can still pick well.
Yeah. Good luck. Good luck. Try to balance both of those.
All right. To round out this episode, let's just do a quick bit of transfer news, wrap up on the biggest news in the world of Premier League transfers. Right now, I think the biggest news today is Eddie Nketiah is going to Palace for £25 million. I think that's going to be a great pickup from Palace. As I mentioned earlier in this episode, I think he's someone that's capable of scoring a lot of goals for a team and someone that didn't need to be rotting on the bench for Arsenal, even though he probably wasn't good enough to get the minutes there. Let's see, next we got Ugarte. Manuel Ugarte he has not signed for United yet, but it's basically all said and done. United signed him for £42 million for £50 million up front and £10 million in add-ons if he performs well. And as part of that deal, Scott McTominay has been shipped off to Napoli for €30 million. I'm going to miss Scott McTominay as a United fan. He's a cult hero for me. He's been a faithful servant for the club for so long, and I hate to see him go, but I do think it needed to happen just from a financial fair play perspective. He is an academy product, so that's going to be pure profit on our books. And then I do think we needed to make space for another midfielder in Manuel Ugarte, who is going to be, I think, important for covering all that ground that we've got in our midfield. So I'm happy to see that transfer get completed after it being kind of teased all summer.
We got some rumors coming up that we're going to touch on. I think a lot of these are kind of like a dominoes falling type thing. We just saw that earlier today that Darwin being linked to Arsenal. I have no idea how likely that is, if there's any really weight there, just some Twitter stuff going around. But now that Arsenal has sold Nketiah, I do think we are looking to reinforce in up top. So I have no idea whether this Darwin thing is possible or likely, but I do think Arsenal are looking for someone. And then if Darwin does go to Arsenal, if Darwin does end up leaving, Chiesa to Liverpool is another rumor that we've been hearing recently. So I could see Chiesa to Liverpool being a thing if Darwin leaves. I don't think Liverpool need another attacker, especially kind of like more of a winger attacker. But if Darwin does leave, I could see the Chiesa Liverpool thing happening. And then, as we mentioned, Gahey likely leaving Crystal Palace, going to Newcastle.
Yeah, I think that'll be a big transfer for Newcastle if they can get Gahey in. I think he's a top player. And then going back real quick, I actually did have comments. I think Darwin to Arsenal could be really interesting. I think he's a super raw player that with the right coaching could get that out of him. Not to say that Klopp was a bad manager. Klopp's an amazing manager, but I could see a change of scenery being good for Darwin. And if anyone could get the best out of him, I think it could be Mikel Arteta at Arsenal. So that is one to watch and see if that rumor grows legs a little bit.
Yeah, I just think Arteta would pull his hair out, lose his mind having a player like Darwin, who's so chaotic. Arteta's so rigid and has such a way of playing, getting Darwin to play that way seems impossible. It seems impossible to get him to play this system. So I just don't see Arteta wanting a player like that, but maybe he's got a plan for him. But we'll see.
Yeah, if that does materialize, it'll probably be like, let's see what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object when it comes to Arteta's rigidity and then Darwin's chaos.
Yep.
But I've also seen a couple, not to go too off tangent, but I've also seen a couple Arsenal fan accounts and talk about how they actually would love for Arsenal to add more risk into their team, more risk taking, a little bit more chaos, because like you even see KDB and Holland are kind of like that. Not Holland. Holland's not too chaotic, but KDB is the type of guy that like he once City get the ball into a position where it's favorable, he then is allowed to take risk. And I feel like Arsenal don't really have that risk taker or that kind of X factor right now in their attack. Like Saka can come up with a moment of brilliance. Martinelli is a good transitional threat, but at the same time, like you don't like. I feel like Odegaard's pretty safe and measured on the ball, which is really what Arsenal needs in terms of knitting up their attack. But at the same time, they could do with a little bit more unpredictability and a little bit more of that, moment out of nothing type of deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think great points. And I would welcome Darwin and take him and cheer for him for sure.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And then along the same lines of strikers, last rumor I want to touch on that we didn't have in the notes, but I just thought of is Osimhen. I just noticed today that Fabrizio Romano reported that Victor Osimhen is now officially between Chelsea and El Ahly or El Ali. I don't know how to say that name. It's either between a Saudi Arabian team or Chelsea. So it'll be interesting to see how that materializes come the end of the transfer window.
Yeah, honestly, I could see him going to Chelsea since Chelsea sold Lukaku. I heard rumors earlier in the transfer window that if Lukaku went to Napoli, then Chelsea were going to go after Osimhen. So I could see that happening.
Nice.
Do Chelsea need another player? No, but
yeah.
But he is a great player, and it would be fun to see him in the Premier League because I've hardly watched him just because he plays in Serie A. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see him in the Premier League, see what he's like.
Yeah, I think it would suck for Nico Jackson, who's obviously getting relegated to the bench if that happens.
Yeah.
But I think Osimhen is physically up for the Premier League, and I do see a lot of potential with Cole Palmer. Cole Palmer and his ability to play the balls in behind and like his just ability to pass, making up very, very well with someone like Osimhen, who's just such a threat in the channels and in behind. So that'll be a great dynamic to see if they go to Chelsea, and I would hate to see it. I love Cole Palmer. I love Victor Osimhen, and I would hate to have to root against them, but I must.
Yep. Great points.
Okay. That's all we got for you guys this week. Next week, we're going to touch on game week 3, maybe touch on a little bit of FPL talk, and then we have international break after that. So we're going to have a transfer window special coming in the next couple of weeks where we're going to talk about the biggest transfer moves, trying to grade each team's transfer windows, talk about the best transfers from each team, maybe underrated transfers as well. Just anything and all things transfers so we can fill the void that we have in our hearts when Premier League is not on during the international break. But yeah, thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you in the next one.